We're all back in here now. What have I done? What have I done with my stuff? Ah, that's why it's down there. So we've got Rodney Brackstone talking about Manorial Records, finding where your ancestors lived, and maybe why they disappeared. And Rodney has been in the guild for quite a while. And he thinks he joined the committee in around 2007 or thereabouts, and he chaired SEMSUB until about 2018. And basically backwards and forwards between Spain and here, feels he has a pretty good feel for the spirit and knowledge of the guild, and we're very pleased to welcome him to talk about the Manorial Records. Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you very much to all of you for doing the honour of coming here and listening to me today. After Donna, I feel a little bit like the little man with the bucket and shovel after the Lord Mayor's show. But
Donna's already left, so she didn't hear.
I know. Oh, but Donna was the horse and carriage. A little bit more on my bio. A biologist with a special interest in genetics, and I taught A-level biology for 35 years. So, actually, I know very, very little about Manorial Records. But before you all get up and go home, I think one of the things we learn from seminars is that we often get one little nugget that make it all worthwhile being here for the day. And there's been some fantastic nuggets today. And I hope maybe just to add one more little one. Right. I'm going to delve a little bit into my family, but we must all be very, very careful when we talk about our family. We get very interested and enthusiastic. And the other people often don't know who we're talking about, where we're talking about, or anything else. And all of a sudden we look and there's a glaze comes over. So I'll try and avoid that as much as possible, but it's my experience. And Donna mentioned telling stories. Gwyneth this morning talked about stories. And when you think about it, radio, television, the media are full of stories. There's Emmerdale, everyday story of northern farming folk. Coronation Street, EastEnders, city folk. So I'll tell you a story. 1954, I was 14. Living in Birmingham, parents been invited to a wedding. Yay, love weddings. And at that time, living in Birmingham here, and the wedding was going to take place somewhere down here, so we had to go from Birmingham to there. No motorways, very few dual carriageways, very few bypasses, and we went through all the towns. Anyway, we got there, lovely. Afterwards, we're on the local hall, everybody's chatting and talking, and generally. And I knew my father's cousin, Alec, and he's chatting away there, and he said to another cousin of my father's, he said, "Hey, Louis," says, "What are all these Brackstones doing here?" He said, "There's a small coach load come up from Bournemouth up to the wedding." And so Louis looked at him. He said, "Oh, you don't know, do you?" He said, "That man over there," and he points to my father. He said, "That man's your brother. And that man over there," pointed to my Uncle Don, "he's your brother." He said, "You've got another sister in Bournemouth, you've got another brother in New Zealand, and you've got another brother down in Bournemouth who's not here." And so Alex said, rubbish. "I've only got one brother. He got married today." He said, "Yes, that's true." He said, "But you and your brother Peter were both adopted, and you are actually a Brackstone." And I thought, yeah, this is an interesting family I'm into. And that sparked my interest at 14. And I tried to put together little bits of the family over the years. Every time we went to Bournemouth for holidays, I might meet a cousin or just ask a few questions. And gradually, I built up a picture of the family. So, here we are, Bournemouth, between Southampton here, and there's Bournemouth and there's Poole. We actually come from Poole in this area here, which is a little bit of away from Birmingham, but I knew that my mother and father lived in Bournemouth. They met and married just before the war. That's the Second World War. Now, we're centred in this area here, which of course is it's in Dorset, it's in Poole, not in Bournemouth. No, Poole's the downside of the area. This is where the workers lived, and this is where all the toffs lived. Now, I remember very clearly that we used to come in by train. We came into this spot here. This road here is now built on the old railway track, and there was a station here. We came up here, got on a bus, and went all the way along here, straight up to Parkston there. And I knew the route very well. I've actually ridden my bicycle along it at times on my way down from Bournemouth. Now, what was really interesting was this point here. Today, it's one of these little modern business parks. Nice big Waitrose, there's an Argos and all the usual stores. But originally, it was the site of a place called Bourne Valley Pottery. And I discovered, through family history, that my grandfather was a potter, right? Not the sort of thing you see on modern day telly with, you know, the pottery, whoops, throw down. But it was actually a company making drainage pipes. And there was another pottery over here making drainage pipes, and they were shipping them mainly to London and into Bournemouth, and it was the great age of sanitation. Interesting little story about the gentleman that owned this pottery. He was a sanitation engineer, lived in London. He wanted to set up a pottery in London, but he couldn't for some reason. So he came down here because this area's got lots of sort of areas of clay mixed in with the sand and gravel and so on. And there were a number of potteries in this area. There were three: Carter, Stabler and Adams. And those three gave rise to the modern day Poole pottery, which you may be familiar with. Obviously their wares were much more colourful and used in the house rather than under the house. Now, here we are in Poole, and all of a sudden these Brackstones appear. So where have they come from, you see? That's the puzzle. Finally, I got my great-grandfather's birth certificate, and he was born in Lambeth, in London. Didn't know that, didn't know they came from London. There was the odd story, but it was so outlandish, I didn't put much credence on it. So, where to now? Well, and also, what made them come down from London? Why did they suddenly appear here? Well, it doesn't take much imagination if you've been to this part of the world. This area was not built on at all in the 1850s. It was scrubland, bush. It's like living in the middle of the New Forest, if any of you've been there. And the odd big old house dotted about. So, open countryside, fresh air, better climate, sunshine, and work. What's not to like about it? That's the reason, and geographers talk about reasons for people moving. Industries moving. and people and all sorts. There are push factors and there are pull factors. Well, there's the pull factors, a much better place to live. And interestingly, the one family came down, there was a small family, and then all of a sudden it exploded. And in the 1880s, 1890s, 1900, there was probably more Brackstones in the Bournemouth Pool area than anywhere else in the country. And so it looked like this was where they originated, but they didn't. They originated, well, we'll follow the story, in London. So, get your data together. Try and fix your year, place, skills. If your person has disappeared after about 1830 in the 20th century, is the place fairly close to a railway? Now, what you must remember about railways, if you look at old maps and you look at old railways and think, just about every village wanted a railway, every town, they were everywhere. Little branch lines and so on. With the result that, as we know, old maps, it was all railways. That was the main way of getting about. Today, the Ordnance Survey map can give us clues because footpaths and cycleways follow some of the old tracks. And of course, one or two they're trying to reopen. So let's go now to London. This is, here we are, Surrey. This is the old city here. I think Tower Bridge is somewhere approximately here. Houses of Parliament here. And of course, this is Westminster and sort of the West End. And Lambeth, Lambeth is there. That's Lambeth St Mary, the main parish church of Lambeth. And just here is Waterloo Station and all the sidings, the terminus of the London and South Western Railway. And it was the London South Western Railway that went first of all into Bournemouth. Well, first of all it went to Poole, and then it branched round to Bournemouth. And the Bourne Valley Pottery had their own siding. So presumably these sewer pipes and all sorts of stuff was coming in to London, and possibly my ancestor noticed this material coming in and then went to investigate where they came from and then moved the family. The other potter that went the other way, that went down from London to the Poole area, he was a sanitary engineer. He was responsible, he was given the contract to do all the sanitation for the great show at Crystal Palace. I think it was 1857 and 51. Thank you. I knew it was in the 1850s because he was given the contract to do all the sanitation, and he set up a whole series of monkey toilets, they were called, and he charged the public 1 penny to use them. Hence the term "going to spend a penny." That's where it comes from. Right, so here we are, Lambeth. Now, we see here, these are the Lambeth parishes here, and then we've got the Southwark parishes here, Bermondsey here. So look at the way they're pushed in, right? Cheek by jowl. And if any of you know anything about this area in the middle of the 19th century, it wasn't a very pleasant place to live. It was effectively the industrial area of London. And if you get some of the old Godfrey maps, and you get the Godfrey map, say for 1880, 1890, and you look at this, the edge of the water here, it's incredible, right? There was brickworks, there was pottery works. After all, the Royal Dalton Company, John Dalton set up the Dalton Company, 1851, I think, in Lambeth. And he made his fortune out of sanitary ware and then went on into the pottery that we know today. Right. The River Thames. If any of you, as a biologist, I've sort of looked into this a little bit, and this cartoon is from Punch. Now, Punch were very, very keen on pointing out the social evils of the day. It's a bit like Victorian, the present, Private Eye, yes, sorry. It was the Private Eye of Victorian times, but it was a little bit sharper. This was placed into a biology textbook, and it really struck me, so I had a look. So here we have Faraday, and he gives his card to Father Thames, and he hopes the old fellow will take notice of it. Notice the dead carcasses floating about in the water, and covered in grime and filth and so on. I couldn't resist. The London bathing season. 1859. Father Thames tells the street urchin, holding his nose against the river stench, "Come, my dear, come to old Father Thames and have a nice bath." Notice the dead animals floating about again. And literally, that was the state. And of course, the land around wasn't much better. And then finally, this one. You'll be able to read the top, hopefully, on the website, because you can magnify it. This says, "The Silent Highwayman." And I think that's a very, 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 very powerful image. Right, so that's what my ancestors, they didn't live in the Thames, but they lived near it. And it was only when the stench of the Thames interfered with the Houses of Parliament that the parliamentarians did anything about it. All sorts of acts were passed, and then, of course, London started the big clean-up of the river. And finally, salmon, of course, finally started to run in this river again. I think, though, in recent years we've gone backwards for various reasons, and I think now that we need to be thinking about cleaning the Thames up again. It's not filthy by any means, don't get me wrong, but there are coarse fish in there, but there are none of the fish that require high levels of oxygen. Right, so here am I. I've got all documentation solid to this Charles Brackstone here and Louisa Ann Smith. Now, Charles was born in 1834. He was born in Lambeth, and he was the only one at that point. And this family, I couldn't find them until, of course, with my name, what you look for is Blackstone. And in the 1851 census, the family's there under Blackstone. And on this, another thing I've come across my family as Brookstones, so that the A has been misinterpreted as a U because the letter A has not been completed by the scribe. So that's something maybe you could think about in your own family. Now, again, there is another family in Lambeth, but they're not related that I can tell. I sorted them out, but they both appeared, and that's it. No Brackstones before. But just across the river is a Charles born 1810 at St Marylebone in Westminster. Well, Westminster's only literally a stone throw from Lambeth across the bridge, and you're into Westminster. So I feel fairly confident that this Charles in Westminster came across because probably housing was cheaper, or maybe the jobs and so on. He was a potter anyway, so or at least his son became a potter, and and of course that's where all the work was, over the river. So, and that's where they moved, I think, anyway. Now, again, there are a few Brackstones scattered about in London, but this Charles, born in 1810, again, he seems to appear from nowhere, and from the records, about the only Charles I can find in London is a Charles born in Aldenham in Hertfordshire. Well, it's not a tremendous distance away, but if we look at it, there might be possible clues. Now, again, one family in Aldenham, and that seems to be it. And I came to a brick wall, and that was it for many years. As more and more data came out, I picked up from, of all places, Wiltshire. Well, there are a lot of Brackstones in Wiltshire. There are a lot of Brackstones in Berkshire and Hampshire. They're based, they seem to be centred on places like Hungerford, Andover, Marlborough, that sort of area. And there's a beautiful little village called Shelbourne in Wiltshire. And it really is a lovely little place. I went to the church, couldn't get in, but they looked all around it, and unfortunately, I think there's one gravestone in the graveyard because they've used local stone. It's very soft, it's eroded, and the gravestone there's nothing that I could possibly read, even with AI. So now the question is that Thomas, that born in Shelbourne, is he the Thomas? Sorry. There he is there. Is he the one here that suddenly appears in Aldenham? Now that was my quest. How could I possibly prove a link? And I pondered this for quite a while, and you know, it's the sort of thing you put on the back burner, and then all of a sudden something sparks an interest. So I started investigating Shelbourne. There's his marriage, or the marriage of his father. 2 marriages in that church in 1 year, 1748. So it's a pretty small place, and thank goodness the vicar could write, or rather I could read his writing. And there we are, Stephen, and he's from Hungerford, and Mary is from this parish. So, right, okay, that's the sort of standard thing we find all the time, isn't it? Now, next place, Hertfordshire Record Office. I explained what I was looking for, what I was attempting to do. Did they have any records of land holdings by the Bruce family in Hertfordshire? Because the Bruce family had holdings in Wiltshire. Did they have any records of land holdings of the Savernake estate in Hertfordshire? Because Shelbourne is in the Savernake estate. Result? Nothing. Nope, nothing at all. Now, as you do, you doodle around on Google, and you go here, there, and everywhere, and you follow it. And it turned up, anyway, that I found this site, Access to Archives. And here we are. This is the Savernake Estates. I thought, oh, interesting. Well, maybe they can tell me if there's any link between Wiltshire and Hertfordshire. And then I saw that. 7,500 files. And it has actually been digitized, a lot of it. So I sort of rather put that on one side. I was put off by that a little bit. But underneath, don't try and read it all. You can read it later. But basically, it's a history of the Savernake estates. And it goes back to the 11th century. And what happened basically, if I can summarize, was that the Bruce family started off in Scotland. Edward Bruce, Lord Kinloss, and he was a nobleman, he was a solicitor, and he was a very, very trusted advisor to James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England. He had dealings with Elizabeth I, and he was instrumental. He was a statesman. He was gifted in statecraft, and he was involved in the peaceful transfer of power in this country from the Tudors, Elizabeth, to James I, or James VI of Scotland, James I, to the Stuarts. And he was rewarded by, I suspect, Elizabeth and by James in particular, and he was given all sorts of land holdings. Yorkshire, Jervaux Abbey and Tanfield, that's the area that he was given. And when it's somewhere here, he had holdings in Ampthill and so on. And there we are. Yorkshire, he acquired by Edward Bruce, with some lands in Hertfordshire in 1606 or 1608. So the Bruce family got lands in Hertfordshire that they were presumably gifts from the monarch at that time. I think Elizabeth died, didn't she, about 1600, somewhere around there. 03, thank you. So he was given these lands just after her death. So that's the Bruce family. And then the Bruce family acquired the Savernake estate by marriage. And if you've noticed, it's the Duke of Somerset. The Cecil family, very, very powerful and very rich at one time. And I think it's the Dowager of Oxford. She lost her husband, and then one of the Bruces married her, and so some of the Cecil estates were transferred to the Bruce family, and the Bruce family took over the Savernake estate. Now, if any of you know anything about it, we know all about Sherwood Forest. It's one of the great forests of this country, great hunting forest, lots of old trees, blah, blah. But the Savernake estate probably has more to offer. There wasn't a Robin of Marlborough, and there wasn't a Sheriff of Hungerford like there is in the Nottingham Forest. But they have some of the oldest oak trees in this country, and a lot of it is open to the public, and it's a very, very interesting area to visit. So I had at least a link now to the Savernake estates and the Savernake. If any of you are not sure, like myself, that's the order of noble titles. And of course, we see here that the Duke of Somerset is near the top. The only way you're going to get any higher is if you get rid of the people above you. The Bruce, Blundernell Bruce family acquired the title of the Earl of Aylesbury, and then he became the Marquis of Aylesbury. So we're dealing with quite landed gentry here. This is the rest of the estate information, and then there's a lovely list of parishes in Wiltshire that are covered by the Savernake estates. That's the bottom end of it, and there's land in Wales and other counties and so on. So it's a very rich source of information over many years because different people contributed to the estate. So my next port of call was North Yorkshire County Record Office, because they hold the records for the Gervais Abbey and the Gervais lands. Gervais, there was an abbey there. It was a Cistercian abbey, very pleasant. I think it's under the hands of British Heritage now. Very nice up there, and so I inquired of them, similar to Hertfordshire, and well, they came back and they said about the only thing we've got is an IPM. Do any of you know what an IPM is? Well done, well done. It's an inquisition post-mortem. This one is from around about 1611. Now, it's name-rich, and it's a very interesting document. And this is what you want to try and get your hands on if you can. This is what you ask for in those thousands of documents in the record office. The top paragraph, basically, what it is the local peers, the landowners, sit down and they go through all the documents from the dead person. And basically what they're doing is, does this person actually own this land? If so, how did he get it? And therefore, has he got title deed to it to pass it to his next of kin, usually the son? That's basically what it's all about. I've sliced the document up, so don't try and read it all now, because you can read it at leisure. But as you go through it, you can pick up all sorts of bits of information. It does give you dates, it gives you all sorts of leads and so on. You won't find many of these, but if you ask for it, then you might find that a record office has one, or more than one, in the area or the manor or the estate that you're investigating. Right, but there are pitfalls. You see, he talks here that he owns the rectory and the church of Northallerton, which is the sort of county town in the north of England, almost alongside the A1M. That now bypasses it. Originally, the old A1 went through Northallerton. Right, now, here we are. This is the red herring for me. There, Newton-le-Willows. Now, I live in Lancashire, so when you say Newton-le-Willows, I think of Newton-le-Willows in Lancashire, right? The mining town. And, but that, I thought that was, but I'm not interested in the Lancashire Newton-le-Willows land. I'm looking for Hertfordshire. So, only by chance, my nephew lives about 5-10 miles from Northallerton in Bedale, another nice little town, and I was there, and I happened to look at Google Maps, and there's a little village called Newton-le-Willows just outside of Bedale. So you've got to be careful, because every little sort of hamlet and village is given a name, and you can be misled. Right, I think it's on the next one we start. Yeah, I think it starts here. At that point, they from what I can tell, they're still talking about places in Yorkshire, but there, the manor of Langley, Chantisbury, and Leesley. Yeah, I know, it's just up the road, isn't it, from you? So as you go through here, what I did, I noted down all these words. They talk about the names of fields and so on. Now, what I discovered was some of these old names of places were just a house, gone, right? If you're lucky, it might be a little mound of grass. now in a field. But then it was a building. And those names have come through in the present day names in modern estates. And that's what you look for. Where? Google Maps, of course. Google Maps. Anyway, if we go down the rest of the thing, there's a list of the valuations of various lands and so on, with figures. There's actual figures of amounts being paid, chief rents, etc. And finally, at the bottom, now there's a reference here to Sir Thomas Cecil, Knight, Baron Burley, etc., because some of the lands were transferred to the Bruce estate on the marriage of Diana. I think she was the sister, I think, or daughter of one of the Cecils. She was married into the Cecil family. So from that document, I went to Google Maps. Actually, this is Bing Maps, and I started to plot. As many places I could find, there. Oops, sorry. There is the parish of Aldenham. This is a Roman road here, and that's Edgware Road that goes straight down into the centre of London, and that's Aldenham. Here is Watford, modern day Watford, and here we've got a few places mentioned in that document. And I then went to maps on map search on the free site, and you get these wonderful county maps with all the parishes on, and then when you click on one of them, it puts it up in colour like that, which is quite useful. Now, here we see Aldenham. There's the parish church is about here. There's the Roman road going up to St Albans, which is around about there. Watford's here, and that parish there, unusual name, Sarrett mentioned, and there's Nash Mill mentioned somewhere there, Leavesden, etc. So I feel that I think, and I'm confident enough to think that one of my ancestors was moved from Wiltshire to Aldenham. What would be the situation? Well, I like to think that my ancestor possibly had skills. Might have been a blacksmith, might have been somebody that made tools, a joiner, joined wood to metal to make scythes or sickles. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a skilled person that carried out this activity of cutting hedgerows and laying them down, or ditching, knew about the drainage of land. Now, the lord of the manor might require somebody to go and do these jobs in a far-off manor, part of the estate. What would happen? Well, they'd probably be loaded on horses and carts. There would be probably one or two men on horses accompanying them, probably armed, because they were highwaymen. And to go by road from Wiltshire across to Hertfordshire would take days. Days. The roads were rutted, and they would make their way, and they slowly but surely, they might stop at an inn. They would have food, that they would take food with them, etc. And this is the picture I have. They would possibly sleep under hedges. They'd sleep maybe in hay that's on the back of the wagon. And there would possibly be people going back in the other direction. They would be taking equipment from one place to another. And this is the sort of scene that I have. So I feel that confident that that man in Wiltshire was moved by the lord of the manor over to Aldenham. And then from Aldenham, there were drovers coming down through here, taking animals down into London for food supply. These areas here in Hertfordshire were like market gardens, and stuff was going down into London because of the demand. And so if you lived in Aldenham, you would realise that there was big opportunities down the road, and young men would probably set off from these areas and move down into London. So I feel that that's more or less my sort of family, really. Conclusion: manorial documents, and of course from manorial documents, the IPM documents were discontinued, but wills became, obviously, but not the wills of the people you're looking for. These are the wills of the manors and the owners, just to get an idea of who owned what and where. Lord of the estate or manor could move loyal people with skills to another place. Now, final point, of course, often never thought of. If the estate had invested, for instance, in the Caribbean plantations, there would be data when the government compensated plantation owners for the loss of their slaves. So if you can get hold of the manorial documents and you find that they've got estates overseas, that's another line of where your ancestors may have gone. And then, of course, from the government documents, you can find who were the plantation owners. And once you know the owner, you can probably link back to the manor. That's another possibility. So there you are. Thank you very much indeed. It's a little bit short, but I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found a nugget there.
Well, thank you very much. There's no need to apologise for the last talk of the day being a shorter one than planned. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Rodney. Any questions on that? I think there certainly were name-rich sources and
well, the IPMs are.
Yeah. I thought that was very interesting. And my sister works in Bedale, so it was all familiar.
Gosh.
It's a small world.
Are you from that area?
Well, I am from Yorkshire. And North Yorkshire. And the North Yorkshire County Record Office is in Northallerton.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Any questions for Rodney or indeed?
Any comments?
So I noticed on the list that I noticed on the list that the Earl of, there's a Grafton estate there. My family came and were working on the Grafton estate, which is just outside Milton Keynes, and they had transcribed all of the records from the manor at that time and put it on a disc, which has been a huge source of information to me, which has told me what my family did there, that they were given a field by the owner of the estate, the Earl, and that they were road builders and things like that. So that is a source as well, that some actual parishes have transcribed the data as well. So it's another source to look for.
Yeah. I would agree. The Manorial Records. I mean, the 7 Acre Estate obviously consists of many manors in many parishes, and say 7,500 files to look at. I mean, years. I had a look at some of it. I mean, it actually details an individual renting a pigsty from the Savanac estate, and so it gets down to that level. So manorial records are a wonderful source of information. Although I've only looked at a big estate with many manors, and I had a specific sort of thread that I was trying to follow, and a specific thing I was looking for. But whatever you want to look for, do have a look, and you can find all sorts of stuff in there.
started my working life living in Milton Keynes. I think there's an area of Milton Keynes called Grafton, isn't there?
Yeah, just outside Grafton Region.
Yes.
It's on, again, it's on that road.
Yeah, that's it. I recognise that name, yes. Okay.
Yes, it's further up Watling Street, isn't it?
Yeah.
Watling Street goes right through Milton Keynes.
How did you know to look for the Savernake estate records in the first place? Because you went from your Brackstones to suddenly looking for the Savernake estate. What step did you take?
I went to Shalbourne, and then I've always loved maps, and so I just looked at maps and I came across the Savernake. Now I also know about the Savernake Forest and the Savernake estates because there was a rather notorious recent court case. I don't know whether it was centred on Swindon or Bath, but there was a taxi driver that was committing serial rape and murder, and he was burying the bodies in Savernake Forest, or at least he buried one of them there, and that was another thing that I knew of it. And it's an area with very few roads through it. There's just a major road from Hungerford south, and that goes straight through the forest. And if you look on maps, you'll find things like this oak and that oak and so on. And as a biologist, of course, when you see things like that, I think, oh, what's this? And if you go in and have a look at some of the pictures in the forest, it's a fabulous place. Incidentally, a little story about the estate. One of the Bruces had invested in the Kennet and Avon Canal, and they were going to bring the canal right through the estate. That was agreed and all that. Anyway, he agreed until they said that they wanted to carve right through a hill, right in front of Tottenham. I think it's Tottenham House, the estate house. And he said, "Oh no! You're not going to put a big cutting right through there. No, got to be a tunnel." And so they had to put a tunnel in. They've put a wonderful tunnel in, and they've called the tunnel the Bruce. It's a big name, the Bruce on it. That's another thing, of course. In the middle of the 18th century was the great age of canals. So if your ancestor lived near a canal, that's another route out. The 19th century, it was 19th and 20th century, it was trains. In the 18th century, it was canals, because the roads were terrible.
I think certainly in the early 19th century, with the poor law and internal migration, quite a few families went up on canals to the industrial north.
Yeah.
As parish-assisted migration.
Yeah.
So the canals were still operating in a significant part of transport in the first part of the 19th century as well. Okay. Any other questions? Well, that brings us to the end of today, I think. Thank you to Rodney, of course.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the team that were operating the kitchens.